well, that policy will be found in Africa, but if you have to look how it's been implemented, the deficit in terms of the gaps, in terms of implementation, sometimes will also be, most of the gaps in policy implementation will be found in the African continent. So what we have done is that, based on the aim of this task force, which is to bridge the silos and at the same time also foster an environment of complementarity and synergies, we intend to actualize the Vision 2030, as I indicated earlier, and also ensure that the long-term plan and the implementation of the Big Four happens. What we looked at was putting everything in perspective, which plausible policies do exist to be able to implement the Big Four, the food security, manufacturing, healthcare, and affordable housing. So we clustered these under pillars. And what we did was that the plausible combination towards facilitating the establishment of agro-industrial zones should be the trust that drives the work of this task force forward, so that it is well structured, and the intent is to facilitate the establishment of agro-industrial zone as the strategic driver to deliver the Big Four and Vision 2030, including the MTP2. And the first pillar, which we put, was, if you take the pillar of agro-industrial zones, starting from the production level, which policy combinations are plausible towards enabling that the targeted building blocks for sustainable agro-industrialization can happen. And the building blocks to be able to ensure that that pillar can happen. This is just an example of what the task force is supposed to do. The building blocks would then means that manufacturing and use of organic inputs, including fertilizers, fertilizers and pesticides, can be done. So which policies can be able then to ensure that the building blocks feeding into pillar one of creating agro-industrial zone, more so from the production perspective, can happen? So what we looked at the climate smart agricultural strategy under the Ministry of Agriculture. You have your agricultural policy, which is upcoming. We looked at the national industrialization policy, including the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya strategy. We look at the health policy, which captures healthy food systems as crucial components of a healthy Kenya. We looked at the climate change actions, formerly called the National Determined Contributions, which captures sustainable agriculture as a key climate resilient area, and relevant provisions of the Finance Bill 2017, specifically focusing in the area where we looked at was, if the exemptions in that finance bill, there is the exemption on inputs for manufacturers of pesticides. If you look at that financial bill, and to put in place a joint plan of action for local manufacture and use of these. So within these policies, there are elements that are aligning to the Big Four agenda, and implementing this plan of action will need that the Ministry of Agriculture, utilizing its climate smart agricultural strategy, its upcoming agricultural policy, combined with the national industrialization policy and the health policy, which captures that the food that is produced, healthy food systems are crucial for a healthy Kenya, and also the climate change action, which captures sustainable agriculture, climate smart agriculture, as a key area to be able to implement climate action, and also the finance bill. All these policies coming together will then be consolidated to not only help implement the aspects of the Big Four, but at the same time also ensure that agriculture, health, environment, and industrialization ministries and the National Treasury can look at these different policy aspects that I've mentioned to ensure that that pillar one on the production side is done. The second is irrigation, which is still fitting into the first pillar under production, farm level production. Is, if you look at climate smart agricultural strategy, which calls for resource efficient food production, and you look at the Irrigation Act of Kenya, and also the Kenya National Determined Contributions, which capture sustainable water use, including in agriculture, as key climate resilient action. If you look at the Finance Bill 2015 and the Energy Act, specifically renewable energy tax incentives are captured here in this policy. So if we combine these policies to put a joint plan of action for scaling use of solar powered efficient micro irrigation as priority irrigation strategy, that will not only provide an opportunity to implement the Big Four, but at the same time, it will result in implementing climate action, cutting across all these ministries, but at the same time, utilizing all these existing policies that are already in place. And this could be implemented across all the 47 counties of Kenya. So implementing this plan will then entail to consolidate the joint efforts with these policies that I've mentioned, based on what we captured from these policies, bringing the joint efforts of the Ministry of Agriculture, which is climate smart agricultural strategy, and the upcoming agricultural policy